Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Liz and this is Let's Get Lizical, where we do everything card making. And today we're going to make a card with some dies that I've had for a while. I've used this in like one other video, I think. I don't even know if I did a video for it, to be honest. I used this flower on a panel before. I think I'm going to use this one today, maybe a few sprigs, maybe cut a couple of them. And I'm thinking we're going to make like a thinking of you kind of card. I have these pre-printed sentiment strips from Simon Says Stamp. This one says hugs from afar, so I think I'm going to use that one. And we're going to do it on a black card base. I'm going to cut a golden arch frame. These two I have kept together and I think it'll be like a good size. Let's just see how it fits. Yeah, so that's how it will look on the card. So we'll just do the frame. I might even want to do it a bit smaller. You know what? We'll just do it the size. I was just thinking I would like a little bit more space to put the flower because I wanted to put it in this corner, but I can still put it in the corner and not have to put it right directly in the corner, if that makes sense. So we'll do that. I'm going to cut that out of some gold cardstock from Michaels. And I brought out my quick strips from Mama Elephant just to cut out the sentiment. Normally I would just use my cutting machine, but I kind of like the beveled edges that the dies give, so we might try that today. But to color in the die cuts, what we're going to do is, I saw this on some kind of reel or video or something the other day, I don't remember where I saw it, but we're going to do some watercoloring on tin foil. I feel like the water beads up on it a little bit differently than it would if you're using like different mediums. Like if you use clear plastic, which is what I've used for ink smooshing in the past. I have like a laminated sheet of white paper that I use as a palette, which I learned from Jennifer McGuire like years ago. I don't do a lot of ink smooshing, so I haven't used it in a long time, but I saw it done on tinfoil and I like the texture that it gave because I feel like you get more little droplets on it, so we'll test that. I also might want to test crinkling it up and seeing how it goes. So I might do a few sheets of those. I'm just going to use my regular Hammermill cardstock, I think. I'm not going to use watercolor cardstock, so we'll see how it goes. If it doesn't go well, we'll just switch over to the watercolor cardstock. But yeah, so you're going to need some tinfoil, watercolor markers, or like water-based markers. So even like Crayolas work for this. I think the one that I saw was potentially a reel on, or like a short on YouTube or Instagram. Those are the two places where I usually watch reels and stuff. But it was like a kid's project and they were doing it on the tin foil and I really liked the way it turned out with Crayola markers. I don't know if I still have Crayolas, so I will just use my watercolor Arteza markers for this. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. You can probably even use reinkers. These are the only reinkers that I have. I have black for my stamping, and then these are my most used colors for the Simon line, so it's like surf and ocean, marine, and cadet. Those are my most used blues. I will probably get the reinkers for all the other ones eventually, but you could also use those for this technique. You would get a little bit more of a saturated color with it, depending on how much ink you use and whatnot. And I think if you did a few drops and kind of like spread it around with a paintbrush or something, and then sprayed it with the water just to give it a little bit more coverage, it would work. But yeah, just something to play around with for today, and we'll see how it goes. I don't know what color I'm going to do the flower yet, so we'll just switch over to voiceover. I'll skip the part where I'm not here because I'll be looking through my marker colors. But yeah, so I will switch over to voiceover and you guys can watch me make a card for today. Hey guys, voiceover Liz here. So I didn't actually really want to add any color to it. So I ended up doing the flowers in like 2 shades of gray, which will be hard to see when I kind of scribble the color on the tin foil because it's scribbling gray on gray, which you'll see here in a second. But I really loved the effect that this gave. I crinkled up just a little bit. It does kind of somewhat smooth out after, just because I am kind of pushing the cardstock into it. But I do like the effect because it even, you know, spraying it with this little bit of water here, you could see like the beads of water are just like so small that it doesn't really do much to, you know, the movement. Like there's still movement because the water is moving it around, but there's not as much movement as it would be if it was on like a piece of plastic or a glass mat or something. Like different surfaces bead water differently. You can see here on the second panel that I'm doing, there was a bit more of that like darker gray, and I probably should have sprayed a little bit more water than I did. So I'm just going to go over it again. The beauty with doing this is you can kind of keep dabbing into it as much as you want and just layer it up. It would probably be a little bit better to do it with a watercolor paper, but the Hammermill cardstock that I'm using, which is always linked in the description below, I just ordered from Amazon. It's 110-pound cardstock. It worked fine for this process, and it actually held up pretty well. Sometimes I find when I'm, using more liquid mediums on this cardstock, sometimes it does pill up a bit, but I think because I was doing the whole sheet of paper, it turned out pretty good, and I would totally do this again. I absolutely love doing this and then using it for die cuts. This is something Amy R does quite a bit, and I can see why. So again, I'm just doing that same thing. I was going to add a few sprigs of greenery into it as well, which I am going to do, but I really love the gray. It was my favorite because it kind of looks like marble. Like I like that marble effect that I got out of it. If you wanted to do a more intentional marble, I would maybe smush the background in like lighter grays and then maybe do some like veining with the darker grays, just like in little tiny areas, and spray that with water and then lay it on top. Maybe we can do that for another video and try that out. I think that would be fun, just to like do a bunch of these backgrounds in like different marble colors and just kind of play around with that. I again really like how this card turned out. I did mess up on the layering for these layering dies a little bit. I missed three pieces. Okay, I did not know that Honeybee had layering guides for their layering dies until I watched a video after I had filmed this one. So I downloaded and printed those out. They are on the product page. There's a little link to a PDF that you can either just print, download, whatever, with the layering dies. I found out there was like that one middle piece that I was going to add to it after was part of this flower. And then there's two other like petal pieces that were missing. But they look fine the way they are, and I don't think they're 100% necessary. Also, I was lining up the flower, I think, a bit differently than it had shown in the image. So, again, like I reprinted the layering guide itself instead of just having the like Illustrator images that they have on the website, because the way I had it printed, it is pretty small on the packaging. I didn't want it to take up a lot of space when I originally printed it, and I printed it on like standard sticker paper, so it's not the clearest, but having these guides is a big bonus. So I made sure I printed out the 5 dies I have. I have the Lovely Layers Bat, the Crow. Those ones I didn't necessarily need to print, but it's nice to have them all. The Fireplace, the mini fall florals, and then the mini holiday florals. I printed all of those, and I love the way that they print these guides out. Maybe I will put one up in the top left corner here just so you can see. I went on Spellbinders just to see if they did something similar. They have a somewhat layering guide, I guess. They just kind of like point to the images. I wish they would do them a little bit more like the Honeybee ones, but that's just me being a little picky. But I think it is a good idea to have that layering guide, and I think that's something I would definitely include if I was going to do layered cut files. I do have one or two in my shop right now. I have like a wreath one, and then I have a to-go cup. I don't know if that one's still up right now, but I do have those. So the layering guide would be helpful for that kind of thing. So I think maybe going forward, I can start adding those types of files and maybe start doing more cut files that are kind of like this. I like layering dies because you can get a little bit more detail into them, but layering cut files are fine as well. Again, I've used them a few times. I've designed a few, and I just, enjoy doing that kind of thing. So just inspiration for my own products, which are all digital right now, except for the stamps and dies that I have already put on my Etsy shop. And yeah, so anyway, back to the ink smooshing. So yeah, I think going forward I would definitely do this on the tin foil as opposed to a more slick surface. It was more of the effect of what I was going for, and I really like this idea of just like making your own kind of like marbled paper for die cutting, because it just like adds a bit of a different look to it. You could also, on top of this, add in maybe some ink blending for a little bit more shading, but I decided to kind of like leave them as is. For the top layers of the flower, I decided to cut them out of like the less busy background, and then the bottom layers I cut it out of the darker version that I did the second time around, just to add a little bit more dimension and texture to it. But otherwise I think it's pretty easy to do, pretty quick and simple. Make sure your panels are dry before you die cut them. When I was doing the like little sprigs of whatever these are, the green one was a little bit damp still, so I was having troubles cutting that. So just make sure your panels are dry. I would either hit them with your heat gun to get them to be fully dried, or maybe do your panels a day ahead of schedule, or a couple hours even, just so that you can make sure that everything's dry. And then I would put them maybe in a book overnight. You don't necessarily have to do that, but it would just like keep them flat. And then for the sentiment, I messed up the black one, which I cut out, and I had the white version left, but I didn't like how stark it was, so I ended up testing if alcohol markers are okay with laser printers, which they are, because these sentiment strips are laser printed. And then I just colored it with a light gray to somewhat match the rest of the vibe. And then just to add a little bit of embellishment, I am adding some clear gems. I think these are the paper rose ones. They have a little bit of a yellow tinge to them, but because I'm putting them on black, you don't really notice. So I try to use them on darker colors instead of lighter colors or white, because it just looks yellow. But anyway, that's our card for today, guys. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, please do so now, because I'd love to have you. And until next time, thanks guys, bye.